Just share a quick passage of scripture with you. Leviticus chapter 19, verse 15 says, "You shall do no injustice in judgment. You shall not be partial to the poor, nor defer to the great, but you are to judge your neighbor fairly." I just wanted to share these words because I just wanted to remind us of how integral each role is within this house. We serve each other. We are custodians of something, and we have been given a role by somebody. We are stewards, if I should use that word. And at the moment in our church, we're talking about stewardship and how we serve within whatever gifting, whatever area that we operate in. And how do we manage that? How do we serve? How do we do well with whatever we are doing? Because if we are counselors, we are public servants, we need to ensure that we do it well, do it with all our might, yet higher. And we offer prayers now. Let us bow our heads because I don't want to talk too long, but yes, thank you very much. Heavenly Father, we thank you for these great people that you have here in this house. We thank you for placing them here at this time, at such a time as this. Father, as we're about to embark in this meeting, we pray, Lord, that you will take over and that you will grant wisdom to everyone and that you will guide us as we serve as stewards in the wider community. Cause us to do it with resilience. In Jesus' name we pray as we say thanks. Amen and amen. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone here this afternoon. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed on the council's YouTube channel. Therefore, if you are taking part in this meeting, you are considering to be recorded and to the use of these recordings for broadcasting. If you have any queries regarding this, please speak to a council officer. There are no fire drills scheduled this evening. If the fire alarm sounds, please leave the building immediately by the nearest available fire exit. If you are unable to use the stairs, a member of staff will assist you. The meeting will convene if it is safe to do so. Otherwise, it will stand adjourned. Members, when you're speaking, the traffic light system here and timer on the screen will indicate when you have 1 minute remaining. Your microphone will be operated for you within the council. Members attending online, please operate your own microphone. Before we begin, I am sad to announce that the death of former councillor and Mayor Tony Nicholson. Please stand to observe a minute silence. Are there any apologies? Councillor Bim,
There are no apologies from Labour Group, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Barlow, Councillor McGrath, Councillor Foley. Thank you. Are there any declaration of interest? No? No declaration of interest. Thank you. Okay, tonight we have 3 sets of minutes. The minutes of the meeting held on the 5th of September, 21st of September, and the exempt minutes from the 21st of September. Is there any dissent to any of these minutes? As there's no dissent, I shall take that as agreed. Does the leader of the council or the executive have any announcements? Councillor Judd.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wanted to give you and members a further update on the progress returning households to their homes at Galpins Road. But before I do so, I'd like to say that my thoughts, and I'm sure everybody's thoughts in this chamber, still remain with the family of Sahara Salman and all those who have been affected by this tragic event. 48 homes were within the police cordon area, and following the lifting of the cordon on the 28th of October, extensive work has been carried out to clear the site, reopen the road, and reconnect utilities. 17 homes have electricity and their gas supplies are being reconnected, and 7 families have already returned home. A further 14 homes are awaiting electrical power to be connected. The council is providing a safety checks at these properties, and following that, UK Power Networks will reconnect those homes and restore street lighting. All residents have been offered gas safety checks, cleaning and pest control inspection. Extra waste collections have been provided to assist residents in making their homes clean and habitable again. There are 16 properties with significant damage, and these families will return once their homes are made safe through necessary works. The council continues to provide alternative accommodation and welfare support to all the families waiting to return. I will endeavour to keep members informed at future meetings on the developments as we work with partners to support residents back to their properties. Thank you.
Okay, just would like to give everyone a little bit update about what we've been doing as in our mayoral role. We had covered quite a lot of engagement, and as you all know by now, we have our Christmas meal coming up on the 1st of December. Just want to ask everyone who haven't booked as yet, please to do so. The booking is open until the 18th, which is not far from now. We also have fundraising Sleep Out with the Dons Local Action Group. I don't know how many people have booked to sleep out. I'm going to sleep out. My sister, Jenny, trying to beat me in a competition because I did 78 miles walk from Charing Cross to Canterbury a few years ago. And she wants to do something bigger and harder than I did. So she's going to track the Kilimanjaro on the 25th of December for our charity, the Dons Local Action Group and Jimmy Asher Foundation. And as she embarks on her journey, we just want to ask everybody to support her and pray for her because it's not an easy one. My concert deputy and I have been very busy for the last few weeks. As it comes up to Christmas, there are lots of events, and we have been doing very well. We attended the fireworks they were really, really well supported. And in my role as a mayor, I'd like to thank every council member, every staff, and all the volunteers that put the effort out to make this happen. I mean, it was amazing to see how many parents, children, and grandparents were out on all the occasions, schools, the parks, and everywhere. I also like to give my thanks to all the councillors who worked very hard during the summer to ensure that our young people and parents have been out. I mean, the cannons were packed during the summer period with children and parents. I would like to ask everyone to continue doing what we're doing and do it to the best of our ability, because we're not only doing it for ourselves, we're doing it for our community, and we're showing our young people that we are out there supporting them. Thank you. I just want to ask my deputy if she do have anything to say. No? Okay, thank you. The next item is the public questions. So supplementary questions have been received. As no supplementary question has been received, we'll move on to the next item. We're going to item 6, councillors' questions from cabinet members. We will now move to item 6, councillors' questions from cabinet members. These have been published along with the response from the cabinet members. I will read out each member's name in the order they appears in the agenda and invite you to ask a supplementary question. Please ensure all supplementary questions are brief and not a statement, and we'll get through as many as possible in the time allotted. Okay, first of all, we start with Councillor Welton.
I do have a supplementary, Madam Mayor. I would like to take this opportunity of thanking the cabinet member for his response. Does the cabinet member believe it is right that Merton residents and working people should not have to pay the bill for the incompetence and economic mismanagement of the Conservative government over the past 12 years, and that our community should not have to cover the cost of their repeated failures?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Welton, for that question. I'm sure you, Madam Mayor, will know, and Councillor Welton will, that here we are, full council, on the eve of yet another budget, just as we were at our last full council meeting, on the eve of a disastrous mini-budget from Tory one-time Prime Minister Liz Truss and one-time Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng. And we all wait with bated breath to see what they've cooked up for us tomorrow. But clearly, Madam Mayor, I agree with him that it's not right that local residents should foot the bill for the mismanagement that the Conservatives have brought on the economy. But I do hope that everyone in Merton is clear that whatever damaging cuts the Chancellor brings tomorrow, everyone in Merton understands that it is the Conservatives that have brought this economy to its knees, but that this Labour administration will do everything it can to protect residents from the damage that they're doing to this country. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just a bit confused by the answer here. I do have a supplementary. I'm a bit confused. What I was hoping to hear about was the decision at a cost of £182.78, according to the documents I've been sent, to move the leader of the council's parking space to be right next to the entrance to the council, which doesn't strike me as something particularly necessary or a good use of public money. So my question to the cabinet member is, first of all, will he issue a corrected answer to this with the right figures in? And secondly, does he think that spending £182.78 on moving the leader of the council's parking space so that it's right next to the entrance to the council was a good use of Merton's money? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I suppose thank you, Councillor McGrath, for that question. I think I'm more than happy to go back and double check the accuracy of the figure. The figure was the one that I was provided with, and hence it was in my answer. But I don't quite understand why he doesn't appreciate what I wrote in my answer, which is that maintenance to the car park is undertaken, and following concerns that were raised, lines had been repainted. But what I would gently suggest to Councillor McGrath, Madam Mayor, is that instead of worrying about the cost of painting lines in the car park, he should be worrying about the cost of the austerity measures that his coalition government brought about from 2010, and all of the damage that that has done to the economy since then, Madam Mayor. So I suggest he should have bigger worries than worrying about the cost of painting lines in the council car park.
Supplementary, yeah? Thank you, Madam Mayor. My supplementary, before I ask the direct question, I just want to mention that we need to be a bit more aware of the culture of this community that we serve. Sandy Denny, does anyone remember Sandy Denny? I do, born in Wimbledon. And Michael Moorcock, the writer, was born in Mitcham. But what role does the cabinet member believe libraries can play in supporting residents, particularly the most vulnerable, during this cost of living emergency? You know, we've taken a decision as a borough to make libraries kind of one of the centres of our culture. What role do you think libraries can play in supporting our culture? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Hayes, for your supplementary question. And yes, I can't say that drawing from a range of community services, we've delivered, the library services have delivered several cost of living events in the library over the last few months. They have served up to 1,000 residents attended those cost of living events across the borough, and advice on hand were housing, legal advice, money management, and can I also say that you can still receive those services in the library. So can I encourage you all to please point your residents to the library so that they can benefit from those services. I'm also proud to announce that all of our library across the borough are now warm spaces for residents who are concerned about their living expenses. So please, again, make sure you tell your residents about that. And whilst residents are there enjoying the warmth, there are activities as well for them to take part in. So it's not just about sitting there. So please, thank you very much for your question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and can I thank the Cabinet Member for her answer. The residents of Cannon Hill are rightly concerned at the recent traveller incursion, and once again on Cannon Hill Common, and Councillor Patterson and myself strongly agree with their concerns. As such, would the Cabinet Member agree to meet with us on Cannon Hill Common to discuss how we can better protect this wonderful green space? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I thank Councillor McLean for his supplementary. I'd be more than happy to come and meet with you and Councillor Patterson. One of the things we've trialled or have installed over in Figs Marsh ward, where we had some incursions over the summer, is a bunding system, which we've overseeded with wildflowers. So hopefully come the summer, we've got a nice natural defence to unwanted vehicles on the green space. And perhaps that's the kind of solution we can look for over at Cannon Hill. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for your reply, Member. I was very pleased to see the council will give a priority to nature reserves that they now deserve after many years of neglect. At the beginning of December, the world will gather for the Global Biodiversity Conference, COP15. It's a chance to stop extinctions to save life on Earth. We need the council to lead the conversation in Merton and drive ambitious action and commit to halting further biodiversity loss. When will the council consult on a biodiversity strategy to be attached to the climate action plan? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Gould, for your supplementary. Well, we've done a range of measures already to look at biodiversity in the borough. So things like Wildways, which we've trialled over the spring, we are now expanding to other sites in the borough, and it's something that we thought was quite important because it's something that Kingston does, and we've got kind of a biodiversity corridor now, really, because biodiversity doesn't stop at the borough boundaries. In terms of an overarching strategy for the entire borough, I think it will actually come under our green spaces strategy, which is something we are in the process of putting together, because the biodiversity that we'll get through things like having reduced mowing around the drip lines of trees are the kind of things where we'll get the real gains from this. So that's probably where we'll see that biodiversity strategy come along, is within our green space strategy that Andrew Kaufman, our great head of parks, and his team are starting to work on. So I'm happy to feed that information back to you once we get that work underway.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I do have a supplementary, and I'd like to thank the cabinet member for his response. Does he agree that the decision to relocate health services from St. Helier demonstrates bad judgment and will result in longer ambulance journeys, greater pressure on neighbouring hospitals, and will impact residents in our most deprived wards the worst? Can he remind us who made that decision and where is he now?
Thank you. Councillor McCabe.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Attawar, for the supplementary question. The decision to move the A&E department, maternity services, and other vital services to Belmont was made by a number of people. But in the final analysis, I, on behalf of this council, wrote to the then Secretary of State, Matt Hancock. I have to say that I felt that the decision that had been made by a government that claims to be interested in levelling up, to rip the heart out of a local hospital and take it to one of the most affluent parts of Surrey, was perverse. As for the issue of judgment, well, I think this particular politician has been completely discredited. At the time, I felt it was a perverse decision, and I questioned his judgment. I think many of us are now questioning his judgment, and my understanding that he's still eating various parts of kangaroos and other critters at the expense of his constituents. You know, at the time he made this decision, I wondered what was going through his mind, and it became clearer at a later stage that he had a great deal on his hands and in his hands, and he was distracted from what he should be doing. And I think it's appalling that this decision has been made, because it will damage our local community. And he should be sticking up for his constituents, just as we have done for ours.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I thank the Deputy Leader for such a full response. The Council and the Mayoralty have worked with Faith in Action for years and have developed a tried and tested model, and Councillor Kirby deserves much credit for this. But what the response omits is that the Council's offer of self-contained accommodation was met with concerns from Faith in Action on the grounds of suitability, safety, and what research shows is in the guests' own interests. Can I ask the Deputy Leader what her analysis was of these concerns and how they will be taken into account when planning for future provision next year?
I haven't looked at the concerns in detail. I would be very glad to do so. But whatever the council provision is, it should not affect Faith in Action's decision-making in view as to what its activities will be. It has an excellent range of volunteers who put themselves out in winter to help the homeless and those desperately in need. And we're not going to do anything to prevent them acting as they wish to do in that charitable purpose.
Page?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I thank the Cabinet Minister for the answer, and also note the significant use of bailiffs. I understand from officers that the bailiff knocking on the door is the first contact the council has with many in council tax arrears. To me, that suggests a fear of contact from the council and of bill letters landing on the door. My question is, what can the Cabinet member do to consider how the council could be more compassionate to people in arrears with council tax in a cost of living emergency? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Page, for your question. I hesitate to say that you have been misinformed, because it's simply not true that residents who are in arrears on their council tax, the first contact they have from the council is a bailiff knocking on their door. There's several outreach steps that the council officers do to make contact with residents who are in arrears, offer support plans, and we absolutely only take action with bailiffs as a last resort when all those other steps have been exhausted. So, you know, I would say we, you know, as with many other councils, do use bailiffs as a last resort. And he will have seen from the numbers that I provided in my answer that indeed during the height of the pandemic, we were even more lenient and even more understanding with residents that were falling behind in their council tax payments through no fault of their own during the pandemic. But unfortunately, as councils across the country are doing, we are now having to resort to ensuring that council tax is paid by residents, and unfortunately in some cases that means use of a bailiff service, but it certainly is not the first resort or the first step that we take in those instances. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to the Cabinet member for his answer. If the Mayor of London does bring in ULEZ next year, do you think 0 additional EV charge points is sufficient to help people switch to cleaner cars?
Thank you to Councillor Daniel Holden for his original question. Thank you to the officers for their written answer to that original question. And thank you to the councillor for his supplementary, which has nothing to do with the original and written answer, but I will answer it. So we have put in our response to the consultation by the Mayor of London on ULEZ. We have urged a generous scrappage scheme to be funded, hopefully, by the government, a retrofit scheme to allow people to rejig their car and keep it, but to make it compliant. And given the cost of living crises as a result of his government's antics and tactics, that would the lead-in time be longer? I think those 3 points are strong enough, and I will take on board any other points he has, and I will encourage him to come on a tour with me on our EV charging points, EV chargers on lampposts, and I'll be happy to visit the 8 service stations that we have within the borough with him to see what their plans are. Thank you.
The final question is to Councillor Williscroft.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a supplementary question to the Cabinet Member for Transport. I'd like to ask, how can we expand on the very excellent and welcome progress of 500 additional EV charging points so that we can support residents who want to switch to electric cars and make Merton the most electric car-friendly borough?
I want to thank the councillor for his original question, officers for their written answer, and thank the member for sticking to his original question, subject, topic matter in his supplementary. Yes, we have a range of strategies to make sure we are EV friendly. We encourage residents to move to electronic vehicle cars. These can be expensive as a first-time buy, especially for new. And so we have a range of other policies and strategies to make sure not only that we speed up lamppost charging, especially on roads without off-street parking, but also that we do EV charging bays throughout the borough, and that we talk to the service stations in their newfound freedom to encourage residents to stick around for 25 minutes whilst their car is rapidly charged. Thank you.
Thank you all. We're now going to move into the strategic main report, which is to promote a dynamic, connected and inclusive community and an economic with safe, vibrant high street and jobs for our residents, with a focus on supporting our diverse community by working with Marathon volunteers, voluntary and community sector. I'm going to invite a cabinet member to present and then seek a seconder. We'll then take the councillors with questions to cabinet members and the strategic team. We'll then take the amendment to the strategic team report. I will then invite any members that wish to speak on the debate to do so. Finally, we will then vote on the amendment and the main report. May I call upon Councillor Stringer, please present the strategic team. You have 4 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. So we chose this theme of promoting a dynamic, connected and inclusive economy with safe, vibrant high streets and jobs for our residents to talk about at this council meeting. But to cover all of that would have taken us well past the curfew on this item alone. So what we have chosen to focus on, given where we are and given the crisis going on, is the critical work going on to support our diverse community, particularly through our work with the voluntary and community sector. I look forward to in the future at one of these meetings focusing on our work on other important aspects such as high streets and community safety. So Madam Mayor, I spent my whole working life working in the not-for-profit sector. So I'm delighted to now be responsible for our council's relationship with our charities here in the wonderful borough of Merton. And as you can see from the report, this is something that the Labour administration has always taken incredibly seriously. Our voluntary sector and community organisations aren't a nice to have, they are a critical part of our borough. Given the breadth of the sector, it's impossible to make generalisations about the achievements, with some organisations providing frontline support to desperate residents, others working behind the scenes to achieve policy and systems change. But it's no exaggeration to say that without this sector and without the hard work of its staff and volunteers, Merton residents' lives would be much, much bleaker. So it's very easy for me to stand in this chamber and say nice words about the sector. But Madam Mayor, we put our money where our mouth is. So last year we provided over £10 million of support to the sector. And as part of our commitment to this, we're in the process of awarding 3-year Civic Pride grants, totaling over £5 million to fund services for residents that help to tackle inequalities, provide help and support resident engagement and services. We received over 40 applications for this fund and are busy assessing them against a framework and criteria. The criteria we're assessing them against weren't imposed by us as a council, but were jointly developed with those voluntary and sector and community organisations. That is how seriously we take partnership working. So Madam Mayor, the partnership working was most evident at the very successful recent Merton Partnership Conference, with over 70 attendees from a huge range of charities and organisations. This conference this year focused on the cost of living crisis, and what we heard from frontline organisations was just shocking. The level of need of residents is growing and growing. For example, the demand for advice from Citizens Advice Bureau is increasing both in quantity but also in complexity. And yet meanwhile, charities' own costs are increasing and some are struggling to find the right staff to offer this vital support. So we are working with the sector on the levers that we have at our disposal. What is painfully clear is that both our residents and our charities need more funding from central government if they are going to weather this storm. Madam Mayor, volunteers clearly play a huge role in keeping our community groups and voluntary organisations going. And we as an administration believe that volunteering in your community is an excellent way to exhibit and enable civic pride. We look forward to working further with the sector to make it even easier to identify volunteering opportunities and to recognise the hard work of our volunteer army. So our sector includes a range of organisations supporting diverse nationalities and different ethnic minorities. And I'd like to thank those who attend our joint consultative committee with ethnic minority organisations. That critical meeting, chaired by Councillor Macaulay, is part of how we make sure that we are challenged and held to account for our work on tackling inequalities. Later, you'll be hearing from Councillor Czepanski and Councillor Bim about their personal connections to the voluntary and community sector. And many of you right across this chamber do brilliant work supporting the sector as staff, as volunteers, as trustees, and also as donors, including the excellent work that you undertake, Madam Mayor, in raising funds for the brilliant charities. So I thank you and everyone here for all of this work, commend this report to the chamber, but we've got much more to do to ensure our sector is in a good place to support our residents. Thank you.
This is being seconded by Councillor Czepanski, and this is his maiden speech.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to thank you for allowing me the opportunity to deliver my maiden speech during this debate. It really is an honor and privilege to be able to speak in this chamber and to represent our communities and the voluntary sector. Madam Mayor, for me, winning in May was a great personal victory. I was honored to win a very respectable share of votes and to be elected to serve the residents of Lavender Fields and Merton as the first Eastern European councillor. I'm also a little scared, as I know that my family, friends, and many Merton Poles will be live streaming and joining me in this moment. I don't have a politics degree, but I do have business background and common sense. And for me, a business-like approach to management in the voluntary sector has always been key. My own background in retail and marketing gave me the first-hand experience of the benefits of good management, and I'm very proud to share that our Polish Family Association, I think, is a great example of this. PFA was a member of the Community Response Hub during the pandemic, and more recently, with our partners in the Council, we set up at great speed the Merton Ukraine Refugee Hub, supporting all the moms, children, and young people, grandparents, and others who sought refuge in Merton. The voluntary sector has always been at the heart of social change and progress in this country. It is often this sector that provides the strong, independent voices that can hold governments and others to account. Be they small informal community groups and mutual organizations or large national charities, I believe that those voices hold great value and must be nurtured. We should accept, recognize, and cherish this rich diversity, this plurality of opinion, and the vivid lived experiences of everyday people who should resist the tendency to dive in few manageable bullet points. 10+ years of austerity have, as we know, devastated the voluntary sector. Many people, as well as the voluntary sector, are fearful of return to austerity and the implications of that as a result of the government medium-term fiscal plan to be announced tomorrow. Budget cuts have hit non-profit organizations hard, and many face collapse or have fallen. And so, as recession looms, I want to put on record here my determination to work hard and with compassion with all my Merton partners to advocate, innovate, and create. I'm fully committed to playing my role in this and protecting, promoting democracy, enhancing community engagement. Madam Mayor, I believe that in the current cost of living crisis, there is no place for arbitrary competition between sectors. Public and non-for-profit organizations should act in unison, not as opponents, but as independent and constructively critical partners in mutually beneficial relationship. One of the voluntary sector's many strengths is the added value it brings to services in the public sector. I welcome Merton Civic Pride approach, the radical rethink of service design, and the possibility of new ways of working. I'm looking forward to genuine collaboration, a collaboration that invites, includes, and values service users and frontline workers for the very first time. This will develop the creativity and flexibility needed to ensure that the program actively genuinely meets the needs of our communities. So, Madam Mayor, there's a lot of hard work ahead. I'm known and noted for my straight talking, and I hope to bring some good Polish style straight talking to this chamber. On election night in May, I promise to do my very best for Merton communities, and I'm looking forward to fulfilling that promise. I'm therefore delighted to second the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we will now take councillors' question on the strategic theme and then continue with the debate. First, Councillor Causey.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. And may I also begin by thanking the Cabinet member for her written response. May I ask a supplementary question? And this is on behalf of someone who's had the great privilege of endorsing quite a few local applications in Cricket Green for the Civic Pride Fund. And on behalf of some of those organisations, can I ask the Cabinet member to provide an update on applications to the Civic Pride Fund, in particular, the bids received and a timetable for making decisions on those funding bids?
I'd like to thank Councillor for his question and for his supplementary. And yeah, we've been delighted by the response to both pillars of the Civic Pride funds. So the investing in neighbourhood funds that he has mentioned, so the annual funds where we invest the money that we get from new developments, has had 40 applications, which is brilliant, totaling over £2.2 million. Sadly, we don't have £2.2 million to give away because there hasn't been as much development over the past couple of years. So what we're doing at the moment is working through the assessments, checking those that we think are the really top priority options. Officers will be getting in touch with applicants over the coming months if there are any questions to discuss ahead of decision making, and the final approval will be made in Cabinet in February. And as it happens, the other pillar, the investing in the voluntary and community sector, also received 40 applications, but they were more from charities and charity groups applying for multi-year funding, and similarly they will be informed towards the end of the year with formal decision making early in the new year. Thank you.
Councillor Flack.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Cabinet member, for your response to my question. In your response, you said you'll have principal planners in place by the end of November and will train them, and as a consequence reduce waiting times for planning applications by the end of the year. Is this 6 weeks a realistic timeline for reducing waiting times for these minor planning applications?
I thank Councillor Flack for the supplementary question. I think it is actually, because we're increasing the complements of principal planners, which will allow that training and the signing up of the minor applications. Of course, we're already ahead of the national target by, I think, 3.15%. National target 70%. We're already at 73.15% of minor planning applications decided within the statutory determination time. And it can get better from there. And we feel confident that with the changes in development control and the officers that we're bringing in, that will be the case.
Councillor Charles.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to the Cabinet member for her response. I'd like to ask, what steps can the council take to ensure Merton families who support Ukrainian guests receive ongoing support for their generosity?
Thank you. I'd like to thank the councillor for her question and for her supplementary, Madam Mayor. So I'm so proud of the many residents who welcomed Ukrainian guests into their homes, including some in this room, proving just how generous and warm-hearted Merton residents are. They stepped up at short notice for an initial 6-month arrangement. And as you heard from Councillor Szczepanski, our charity sector really stepped up as well. But sadly, that war continues. And we need to continue to support those who are able to continue housing Ukrainian families. So we have increased the funding to hosts if they continue past 6 months with an additional £100 a month on top of the £350 a month. So we know that doesn't cover everything they do, but we really wanted to signify the value that we place on the civic duty that they are undertaking. But alongside that, we know this won't be an option for all hosts to continue beyond the 6 months. So we're also calling for any other residents who have spare rooms to continue to come forward. We're doing a big push on this in the moment. You'll see more comms going out in my Mert and other channels over the next few days. If you have any residents who are able to offer their rooms up to Ukrainian families, please do come forward. Thank you.
Councillor Kohler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Christie, for your answer, although I'm not sure you know the meaning of subject. As any app expert will confirm, you judge apps not on the number of downloads, but on a range of metrics, including retention rate, churn rate, monthly active users, daily active users, average session length, etc. You even implicitly acknowledge the value of some of these metrics in your answer. So it's a simple request. Can you please commit to publishing the results of all the metrics used to assess the success of an app and not just the number of people who've downloaded it?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Kohler, for your question. Never tire of you questioning my knowledge of the English vocabulary, but thank you for continuing that tradition. I would say that the written answer that I provided Councillor Kohler, Madam Mayor, was in response to his question suggesting that the number of downloads by residents and the number of businesses being advertised on the Merton Local app was not a reliable indicator of success. And I simply would disagree with that, Madam Mayor. I think, although obviously we have detailed technical analysis that looks into all the various measures that he suggested, and we'd be happy to share them. But you know, if he really wants to see that kind of technical detail behind the app. But the point of the app was to bring local residents and local businesses together, and you know, so to suggest that the use of the app by local residents and local businesses is irrelevant seems sort of nonsense. But regardless of that, Madam Mayor, we want to support local businesses and local high streets and local town centres, and with Small Business Saturday approaching, Madam Mayor, we would urge everyone in this chamber and in the borough to support local businesses, shop local on Saturday, 3rd of December, Small Business Saturday. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mercer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I thank the Cabinet member for the answer to my question about support and clarity with our plans for our nearly 300 Ukrainian refugee families. I also thank Councillor Charles for her supplementary question and for the Cabinet member's response to that, which is relevant. I have spoken today to Officer Elliot Brunton, and he tells me that an updated webpage will soon provide clearer information for refugees regarding their accommodation options, which sounds very positive in terms of helping the refugees. I welcome the proposal to increase the monthly grant to hosts from £350 to £450, though I cannot see any particular adjustment has been made for increased living costs. And I do have a fear that by paying less than some other councils, we might end up losing hosts and it costing the borough more for private accommodation instead. Is it possible, as I think you've suggested you have an inclination to do already, to both put more focus on maintaining existing hosting arrangements and for those coming to an end, for whatever reason, on finding new hosts to replace them?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Mercer. And Councillor Mercer is indeed one of the residents that we should be thanking for opening his doors to a Ukrainian family. And as you say, we are very committed here. And my understanding from speaking to those involved in other local authorities is that the system here has been pretty slick compared to many other local authorities. We're able to make the approvals very quickly, get people into host houses very quickly, and as we've heard about, provide them with lots of additional support. What we need is a long-term plan, and the government has never given us a long-term plan. Everything's been about emergency planning. So we are, as you've heard from your conversations with officers, Councillor Mercer, we are trying to develop our own strategies, anticipate any challenges that are coming down the road, make sure that we're already trying to seek new homes for any breakdowns in relationship that may be coming, which again, compared to other local authorities, are not that bad in Merton. And we're trying to be on the front foot here. What we need is a long-term plan for government so that these Ukrainian refugees can feel settled, that the children can stay in the same schools, and that they can have no further disruption to what has been a very difficult year for them. Thank you.
Councillor Mundy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I thank the Cabinet member for her answer and for the work her and that of the administration to tackle the cost of living crisis in partnership with the voluntary sector. Can the Cabinet member provide an update on the outcomes from the recent Merton Partnership Summit and how the Council and partners will take these forward, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Mundy, for your question and for your supplementary. Yeah, the summit was an excellent day. It was opened by the leader and the chief exec was also there, and we had over 70 people there. And there's no point bringing all these people from all these organisations, often very senior people from their organisations all together, if we don't then listen and if we don't then respond to what they said. So we're already working on some of the quick win ideas that came out of the attendees. For example, it was clear that charities need better, easy access information to what benefits and financial support is available to residents. So we're already working on this. But all of the discussions are being digested into findings that the Merton Partnership Executive will consider. And they will also be used to shape what further work the council does around cost of living, for example, distributing any further funds that we have. So we're very much listening to the partnership.
Councillor MacArthur.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to the Cabinet member for your response. Now, I note that in your response to engagement with local sports groups, there's no mention of swimming, netball, gymnastics, hockey, or a number of other sports. Could the Cabinet member commit to holding a sporting summit to which all interested local sports groups are invited? And I would also ask the Cabinet member whether she could confirm that a cross-section of all party members will be involved in the development of the blueprint for our sporting strategy that's being currently developed by London Sport, thereby ensuring a fully representative strategy is produced.
Can I thank the councillor for her supplementary question, and thank you, Madam Mayor. I am willing and happy to listen to everyone across the board, all clubs and individuals. And in fact, just today we met with BMX track in Mitcham. So that's a different sport. It's not the usual that you will hear about. And we'll be supporting them and seeing what we can do to promote them. But we are open to listening to everyone. And in fact, we also have London Sport consultants who are coming to work with us to develop our strategy. So over the last 5 to 6 months, we've been sort of connecting with these different organizations, whether they be grassroots or not, and individuals or not, but just connecting with them so that come now, we can put things together. This is sort of building the foundation on which we will be able to build our borough of sport. If I can just also mention an individual that I met just last week, Lorna Booth. So she's sort of like a local hero that I've never heard of her, but she grew up in Merton from a child, went to school in Merton, and she's now a double Olympian. She's also, I think, gold and silver medalist Commonwealth, and she still lives in Merton. And she reached out to us when she heard about the borough of sport. And we welcome people like that, and we're working with her. And so, yes, we are on the route to building this borough of sport. It will take a while, and we've got yet to develop our strategies. So we are going to be reaching out to as many people as possible in order to make sure that we are serving everyone in the borough. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for the response to my question. I'd like to ask a follow-up question, which is regarding the Strategic Partner Fund programme that's now being renamed, I think, Civic Pride Fund. 2019 to 2022, the total amount was 4,572,159. And for the 3 years, 2023 to 26, it's going to be 5,067,279. Now that appears to me to be an increase of 11% over 3 years, but the increase is being quoted as 35%. So I just wondered if she could clarify those figures. And I should just say the figures that I'm looking at, I'm taking from page 19 of the Cabinet papers from September the 22nd. Thanks.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Hall, for your question. I'm happy to look again at the figures. I obviously don't have them in front of me or know them off the top of my head. Thank you. But happy to look at them and clarify the amounts. But what I would say is that clearly this administration, as we've heard from Councillor Stringer, values the role of the voluntary sector in our community, and we are committed to supporting them financially in the years ahead.
Our final question is to Councillor Macaulay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, I would like to thank the Cabinet member for response to the question. And I would like to ask a supplementary question. What work is being planned to mark the 75th anniversary of the Windrush on the 22nd of June next year? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Macaulay, for your question and for your supplementary. And firstly, I'd like to thank you, Councillor Macaulay, for the excellent work that she does with our ethnic minorities across the borough, both in her role as chair of JCC that I've mentioned, but also her wider work using her skills as a magistrate to help people navigate the quagmire caused by the government's disastrous handling of the immigration status of the Windrush generation. So we are keen in Merton to fully recognise both the amazing contribution that the Windrush communities have made to our country and to our borough, but we also need to recognise the experience here haven't always been positive. So what we're doing is we're bringing together a group of volunteers from across the communities to coordinate a whole range of activities, and some celebratory and some more educational and understanding some of the difficulties that we're hosting to host these activities throughout June next year to mark this really important milestone.
Okay. As there are no subject to team motion were submitted, we now move to the amendment to the strategic theme main report. Councillor Cole, please move your amendment. You have 4 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Let's start with two uncontroversial points. The strategic priority we are focusing on tonight is clear. Paragraph 1.1 of the report says to promote a dynamic, connected, inclusive community and economy with safe, vibrant high streets and jobs for our residents. The purpose of the report is also uncontroversial. Paragraph 1.2, to report on progress as regards that priority. All we have here is a report that only looks at the first 7 words of the strategic theme, namely focusing solely on the voluntary sector, which is indeed critical. So critical, in fact, that it deserves more than a sparse 12 pages simply lauding what the administration's commitment. You're telling us what you're doing, you're not telling us what you've achieved. There's no evaluation of the money you are spending. As with so many reports that come to council, it's uncritical, self-congratulatory. Councillor Stringer, you talk about civic pride, but this is hubris. You told us a few minutes ago that you put your money where your mouth is. It's not your money, it's the residents' money, and you need to evaluate how well you are using it. But let me emphasize again, the contribution of the voluntary sector in promoting a dynamic, diverse community is critical, as Councillor Hall will cover in her speech. But that does not mean the rest of the strategic priority can be ignored. In the midst of a cost of living crisis, the country on the brink of recession, stagflation on the march, we need to know what the council is doing to promote local economy, protect local jobs, help our struggling high streets and keep them safe. Now, I'm not blaming the administration for the state we're in. We know it was the result of this hapless Tory government. 3 Tory PMs in less than 3 months. In fact, Conservative prime ministers regenerate faster than Doctor Who. Although at least the good doctor is on our side. You can't help thinking the current Tory party would side with the Daleks if the money was right. But given the abject failure of the national government, we need to know what the administration plans to do. I will leave Councillor MacArthur to address this with regard to small businesses. Councillor Willis will cover it in the overarching context of civic pride. I want to end by focusing on safety. Merton is one of the safest boroughs in London, the only one to retain 2 fully functioning police stations as a result of my successful court action against Sadiq Khan that prevented him closing Wimbledon Police Station. However, its long-term future is not secure, as evidenced by the Mayor's recent crime plan. A plan which neither Labour, nor the Tories, nor Wimbledon's Conservative MP Stephen Hammond even bothered to respond to during the consultation period. Now, quite coincidentally, Councillor Garrett has today written to the Deputy Mayor, agreeing with the Lib Dems position on police stations in Merton. Thank you, Councillor Garrett. So I trust neither you, nor for that matter the Tories, will have any problem voting for our amendment to mount an active campaign to preserve both Merton's police stations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The amendment is being seconded by Councillor Arthur, and this is her maiden speech. 4 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I opened this report full of expectation. I was keen to learn about the administration's vision for a safe, vibrant high street. I was excited to hear its plans to promote a dynamic, connected and inclusive community. But by the end of the report, I was slightly confused. Had I missed something? I think it might be easier for Matt Hancock to find stars in a bush tucker trial than to find most of the strategic theme in this report, and he gets a second mention. I'm genuinely concerned about the omission. It points not just to a lack of vision about our high streets, but a lack of awareness as to how they should connect with what is included in the report. If we are going to reimagine our high streets, then we need to look at bringing together community groups, third sector organisations, business groups, cultural organisations and commercial interests. We should, as a local authority, be facilitating discussions and collaborations by coordinating with all of the above groups to develop and support high street and town centre renewal. And it is vital that we do so, for as the strategic theme itself emphasises, Merton must have healthy, inclusive, vibrant, community-focused high streets. Small local businesses are one important element. They have faced many challenges recently, and they should play a vital role in our high streets. They give character, they foster a sense of community, and they're crucial to the local economy, providing employment and training and businesses with a real stake in a local community and environment. I sometimes feel this administration has a shrug your shoulders attitude to the high street, a sense that it's all down to market forces, there's nothing the council can do. But we can. For a start, Merton should deal with the rubbish problem. Many of our high streets and shopping parades have flats above the shops, and this council has singularly failed to address their refuse issues, resulting in high streets strewn with rubbish and rotten food for the last 5 years. We could and should properly promote initiatives such as Small Business Saturday on 3rd of December, which I know has just been mentioned, but there's no mention of it in the report or on our social media channels. And if you type Small Business Saturday, December the 3rd, into the council website, all that comes up is information for one held in 2016, which has a slight back to the future feel. Merton's not just silent on national campaigns, it's also failing to come up with local solutions, such as South Sutton's Green Enterprise Initiative, supporting local businesses so they reduce their environmental impact. Westminster Council's activation programme, enlivening vacant premises by providing opportunities for small businesses and artists to occupy rent and rate-free space in the West End. There's also the Lewisham-backed business partnership, which conducted over 21,000 business visits to promote grants available, along with initiatives aimed at supporting local business diversity. And lastly, I must mention Bexley, working to improve the transition from daytime to nighttime economy. One of their initiatives, which I really like, is a monthly night market, and one of the key features of the project is a proactive engagement with young people, helping them to develop their entrepreneurial skills and gain confidence. These are just a few examples of what Merton Council could be doing to help small businesses survive, grow, fight climate change, promote diversity, and provide opportunity for young people. But we do have the app. Business is crucial to our community as the administration itself makes clear in a strategic priority that emphasises the connection. Now, you often tell us you're a business-like council. This report seems to suggest that business is none of your business. I cling to the hope that you're just being modest, but I fear what we are witnessing is a dereliction of leadership, imagination, and enterprise. Thank you.
Thank you. I have the following listed to speak. Councillor Bim, and this is a maiden speech. 4 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It is an honour to follow my fellow councillor, Councillor Slaveski, to move the strategic theme report, highlighting the importance of everyone doing their bit. Firstly, I would like to congratulate Councillor Slawek on his brilliant maiden speech and for all his work in the community, particularly welcoming and supporting the many Ukrainian refugees who have come to our borough this year, and his work with the Polish Family Association, supporting the many people who come to our borough to work, raise a family, and make a home. This is a story that resonates deeply with my own family's history. Growing up in Graveney, my grandmother, my mother, and my auntie Zina, 3 strong matriarchs, found a strong sense of community. This was like the one they had left behind in Guyana in South America, the country of my heritage, and this somewhat interesting accent. This sense of community they found was embodied by no one better than my Uncle Tony, a familiar face in Graveney. My Uncle Tony suffered from schizophrenia, which tragically eventually took his life, but like many people with mental health issues, it was not his defining characteristic. He was so much more. He was the best uncle a child could have asked for, cheeky, wickedly funny, impossibly proud of his family, especially his nieces and nephews, unfailingly encouraging in whatever I wanted to do, especially my volunteering efforts. And in Graveney, Uncle Tony was one of those people on his street that everyone knew, that people came to for advice or to sort an issue, for a laugh when they were down. He had a warm, gentle heart and was the kind of person that truly defined the spirit of community. We see this spirit already in the local Junior Park Run volunteers who give up their Sunday mornings in all kinds of weather to set up and run the Figs Marsh Junior Park Run. I see this spirit in the board members and volunteers at NEMCA, the North East Mitcham Community Association. I see it in my fellow councillor, Linda Kirby, with her unfailing passion for bringing the arts to us. And in my predecessor, Councillor John Dehaney, who remains an active member of the community, on the doors every Sunday, despite having given enough service to earn him a lifetime's worth of rest. It is this spirit, this care for the people around you, that I want to try to embody, to encourage and to nurture within Graveney. Despite the amazing efforts of the council, of the volunteers, I know that there are still more people from all kinds of backgrounds, all walks of life, that we could do more to support, to coax out, and to say we are here and we are your community. But before I conclude, I'd be remiss to say that it isn't lost on me that I stand here as a woman of colour, 6 months into her term, having already received personal abuse and threats via all means of channels. To those that seek to eliminate us and our efforts, I do say to them in the words of Taylor Swift, all you are is mean, a liar, and pathetic, and I am still standing here. Taking some more, this time exact words from another brilliant woman in local government, Leslie Knope. During my term as your local councillor, I want to focus on your hopes and not your fears. I want to solve problems instead of creating friction. And I will work hard every hour of every day to make Graveney and Merton a better place to live. Because I love this place in which I was born, in which I was formed, and where I am so very proud to still live and to represent. Madam Mayor, I am proud to move this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hall.
Madam Mayor, fellow councillors, residents. I was particularly pleased to read the part of the report which dealt with supporting communities via voluntary groups and community organisations. The report is correct. They do play a vital role. Groups such as Merton Connected, Merton Mencap, Age Concerned, Don's Local Action Group, Merton Community Fridge, Wimbledon Guild, Citizens Advice Bureau and BAME Voice provide invaluable help to our community. There are many more too, smaller organisations which provide support for our citizens. And it's with great pride I note that over 30% of our citizens have carried out some form of volunteering within the borough in the last year. I was at a gathering in the Mayor's Chamber last Friday when volunteers across the borough were receiving awards for their service. It was inspiring. So we should be proud and we should continue to support voluntary and community groups wherever they're doing good work. Now, the report refers to a well-established, far-reaching and substantial funding programme. Well, it should be, but actually it fell back over, you can see from the questions where I asked a question, the budgets were cut over the last 6 years and only now you're beginning to put some money back in. Now, I know that budgets are having to be cut due to a reduction in government grant, and yes, I put the blame fairly and squarely on the government. I've said it before, the Tories make us all poorer. But let's get back to the local position. Looking at the figures over the past 6 years, our grants to voluntary and community organisations have fallen behind. And many of our voluntary organisations are charities. Charities are experiencing many financial problems, including the reducing values of their direct debits set up years ago, reserves in free fall and low pay making it difficult to recruit the best people. Our local charities need our support more than ever. Now, let me read an extract from the report. It actually says, despite the ongoing financial challenges facing councils, Merton Council have committed to invest in this refreshed programme with a 35% increase in overall funding for 23-26. It's not 35% increase, it's 11% over 3 years. If you take inflation into account, we're at 11% per year at the moment. So, you know, don't pat yourselves on the back too much. Finally, I think we could go further as a council. There's much more we could do, not just financially, but imaginatively. For example, we could be more proactive in helping voluntary organisations to achieve more, sharing information and skills, setting up better and more effective partnerships, looking at where there are overlaps and encouraging joint working, ensuring that voluntary and community sector can rely on long-term funding and are not living a hand-to-mouth existence. Hopefully they won't suffer what they've suffered over the last 6 years of reducing funding. I welcome the steps the council's taking towards this, but as ever, it could do more. Thank you.
Councillor Howard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I'd also like to say thank you to the officers for the preparation of this report, which is very informative. And we certainly do recognise that the voluntary sector helps many residents in the borough, especially as it did during the pandemic. The Community Champions Network, the New Horizons Service to help Ukrainian refugees are welcome initiatives, certainly. The idea of libraries as community hubs is a great idea, as are the library health and wellbeing initiatives. Libraries as warm spaces during the winter and cost of living advice centres are also at the borough libraries. I think it's an excellent integration of services. However, and I think to echo something Councillor Kohler said, was that the report does not give a full view of how the £70 million that Merton has given to the voluntary sector over the last 6 years has been spent, and whether that money has been spent effectively. It also does not say how that spending is being monitored. We've put forward a non-strategic question asking for further information on these topics. Moving on to the amendment, if I may, the fact is we're all the same hymn sheet with this one, because for some several years now, all parties have demonstrated how they wish to keep Wimbledon Station open, and they have also acted in that measure. Stephen Hammond has been very active on this and has lobbied the Mayor of London and spoken in Parliament. In 2017, We collected over 4,000 signatures calling for the police station to remain open. The Conservative group proposed for the council to buy the police station at budget 2018 and at July Council 2018, which could have been achieved with the available reserves at that time. So that was a missed opportunity. So let's be sure to get behind this one. Thank you.
And this is his maiden speech.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We've heard a lot about civic pride tonight, and let's be honest, it's probably why I'm here. I was project manager for a mural in Rains Park. Check it out, it's on Google Maps. And now local residents have given me the opportunity to put the same energy into the rest of the ward. So what is civic pride? Well, of course, the answer is whatever we want it to be. So what do we want it to be? The report goes a small way to answering that question, and you've heard more from my colleagues. Civic pride doesn't belong to one department. Yes, it's support for our charities and voluntary sector as outlined by Councillor Hall, but it's also an increase in cultural activities, access improvements in our public spaces, it's adequate mental health support, and an increase in green space. It's planting trees, yes, but it's putting the same effort and resource into maintaining them. Civic pride is a reduction in traffic and improvement to air quality. It delivers on electric charging points and has a focus on active travel with an investment to match. It is quick repairs from housing associations, having an adequate level of housing stock, rehousing people, not points, and respecting the wishes of our residents. A borough of sport can instill civic pride, but only when we don't build over potential sporting sites or take too long to negotiate leases on existing ones. As we heard from Councillor MacArthur, we want vibrant town centres with a diverse mix of retail and dining. It will boost the local economy. But we can't do that when small businesses in my ward are waiting 3 months for a shop front to be approved. Merton has many hardworking officers, don't get me wrong, they're working hard to improve it, but we need to look at how we as a council spend money effectively as a borough to fill roles, attract people, talent, pay competitively, and reward people for hard work. There is no civic pride in waiting 9 months for a new blue badge, or having email chains go on for months. We've all been there, right? Residents need to know who they can contact in every situation and receive a timely reply. They need to know that all decisions are adequately scrutinised and that members have the papers with enough time to do so. Scrutiny is not oppositional. A culture of constructive challenge will help us to achieve great things. The strategic theme uses the word safe, which the report somewhat neglects. It was right for Councillor Kohler to bring out this element. Tonight, we wear ribbons to raise awareness about violence against women and girls. It was right that we brought this issue to an extraordinary council last year when this group numbered only 6. People need to be able to feel safe on the high street and know that the authorities have their back. Thank you, Councillor MacArthur, for raising bins in flats. Okay, there's likely to be a new contract in 2025. We know this, but one party in that contract will remain the same, Merton Council. When a wheel broke on my building's bin 6 months back, it took 44 emails, 6 residents, public space, WSG, member inquiry, 2 officers, 3 Veolia staff, 2 councillors, and 11 weeks to get it sorted. And I still had to drag it to the curb myself to get it emptied. But I'm happy to, because I love Merton, where I moved in 2010. I've passed my life in the UK test and soon become a British citizen. Thank you. That ceremony will be with the Mayor of Merton or her deputy, and in the beautiful Morden Park House, and I can't wait. Getting to do that as a local councillor will fill me with pride, but pride is like respect. We can't demand it. It emerges as a side effect of doing things right. We must do things right, and then we'll have something to be proud of. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. If there are no further speakers, Councillor Stringer, do you wish to use your right of reply? 2 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And firstly, I'd like to thank and congratulate Councillor MacArthur and Councillor Willis on their excellent maiden speeches and for their commitment to civic pride in this borough. But this is a deflection amendment, so they clearly couldn't find anything to criticise this administration on in terms of our work with charities and ordinary equalities. They've completely ignored equalities, it would appear as well. So they tried to shoehorn in, well, initially 2 other subjects in the amendment, but then several hundred others in the speeches. But the other topics in the amendment, local high streets, local businesses, community policing, these are huge issues in their own right that we're doing lots of work on, and they deserve full attention at future meetings. So meanwhile, Madam Mayor, colleagues should be reassured that work on both these aspects does continue. So on policing, both the leader and I are regularly in touch with senior police leaders and with the executive leaders responsible for policing decisions. We've been repeatedly making the case to keep both police stations in Merton open. We need Mitcham Police Station, we need Wimbledon Police Station here to ensure that we continue to be one of the safest London boroughs. So we've recently reiterated this call to MOPAC Chief Exec Diana Lurchford and the Deputy Mayor for Policing, Sophie Linden, but a call that we've been repeatedly making over the past few months since we've been in our positions. So whilst the Lib Dems are fielding these amendments, we're busy cracking on, working with the police to keep residents safe and campaigning for the resources we need. So on the other topics, Madam Mayor, support for our high streets is vital. We're taking the actions, and on the other topics, we're also taking the actions. We're working with the relevant business improvement districts, with the Chamber of Commerce, with other groups. As I said, it will take longer than I'm allowed in the speech to cover all this in detail. But for example, we are bringing workspaces that are owned by the council into space as affordable workspaces for local businesses. We are investing in our shopping parade. We're doing all these things that have been mentioned, and we would love to debate these in much more detail. But it's been already mentioned, but I'd like to take this opportunity to remind residents that Christmas is coming. Support your local businesses. Thank you. Oh, I think
I will now call for a vote on the Liberal Democrat amendment to this strategic themes report. Please raise your hands for. Against? Thank you. For 26, against 29, not voting 0. The amendment falls. Okay. The amendment falls. Can I please call for a vote on the
Check everybody agrees.
everyone agreed? All right. Thank you. Right, ready again? Item 8, Rains Park Community Forum. Councillor Willis, will you please present the report? 2 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Having just spoke, I'll mostly refer members to the minutes in the agenda, but a few highlights were a flooding update, exciting plans for the railway embankment, again, volunteer-led, which is fantastic, and a section on the Warm and Well project from Wimbledon Guild. We heard about Merton's Climate Action Group, gave an update on funding applications for future mural projects, and ended with council leaders' questions. With apologies from Councillor Garrett, we did have Councillor Stringer attend, which was great, as we could discuss the rather timely Civic Pride Fund. There were questions on the part of the fund that uses SIL, investing in neighbourhoods. Residents were happy to hear that this fund will go to projects all across the borough, rather than being focused on any one part, and this was gratefully received by all present at the meeting. We all agreed that improvements anywhere in Merton are for the benefit of us all. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Forum, Councillor Kohler, will you please present the report. 2 minutes, please.
Thank you. I won't be as expansive as my colleague. We had an excellent meeting. There was only 20 residents there, though. We're still not actually no, as you see with all these community fora, we don't get loads of residents there. We need to do more about that as a council. All of us need to do that, and we need to work on that. Again, I'm afraid Councillor Garrett couldn't make out one either, despite there being parking very close, but you couldn't make it. But we had an excellent report from Councillor Stringer, and it's all there in the minutes. Thank you.
Councillor Monday, will you present the report? You have 2 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for the opportunity to speak on this report and officers for preparing it. This is my first meeting as chair of the Mitcham Community Forum, and I was delighted it was held in my own ward of Pollards Hill. To complement the laser-like focus of the administration supporting residents through this cost of living crisis, this event not only provided an opportunity for residents to have their say, but also to receive support from 5 organisations: Mitcham Job Centre Plus, Citizen Advice Merton, Commonside Development Trust, Merton Credit Union and London Learning Consortium. We thank you for supporting residents attending into training, work and with credit and savings advice. Moving forward, I hope to repeat this format and connect many more residents with those organisations to receive support during this cost of living crisis. I also want to thank Naomi and everyone at the New Horizons Centre for hosting us, but also providing dinner to attendees afterwards. And many of the items that have already been summarised by chairs of Wimbledon Rains Park. I'll be working with officers and the cabinet member to provide updates to the queries raised by residents and detailed on page 1 of the report at the next event, which will be held on the 21st of February at 7:15 with further details to follow. Thank you.
Collingswood Community Forum, Councillor Kirby, will you present? 2 minutes, please.
Thank you. We had a small attendance, but we had an awful lot of people tuning in as well, which I was very pleased to see. We had a very successful soapbox issue. Leonie Cooper came along from the GLA to speak and give us an update about what was going on there. We had discussions around climate change and what the borough was doing with that. And importantly, the leader of the council came along to talk about the work that was going on in Galpins and also generally around the cost of living crisis. So I think it was a very successful event.
Item 12, Morden Community Forum, Councillor Charles, will you present the report? 2 minutes, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'd like to also thank Chris Witherington for his for organising it all. Yeah, it was an excellent meeting. We had more residents than we usually get. We had councillors from the 5 different wards in Morden, and from all 4 parties. So it was great, and we had Council Leader Garrett there, and also Assembly Member Cooper, who were asked lots and lots of questions by the residents. The most important part of the evening, though, was that the residents got their chance to actually give their views to all of us elected representatives. And one of the positive outcomes of that was there was a particular fly tip hotspot, and the cabinet member for Environment and Climate, Councillor Irons, and also one of the councillor officers, the manager of public spaces, arranged to get a CCTV put in there and extra enforcement officers and notices. And I'm pleased to say that the actual place has improved. So that was a positive outcome for the residents there. And the other thing we did was had a piece of a resident actually gave us a speech about his particular sphere of interest, which was beekeeping. And that was an excellent talk. Everyone was very interested in it. And it was great to have someone from the community speaking rather than all of us lot all the time. So yeah, went down very well. So thank you.
Motion Councillor Oldham, will you move the motion, please? You have 4 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move in this helpful Conservative motion tonight because we want to add to the good work that's been done by Labour on the waste strategy consultation. So you actually heard I said good work. It's not normally something I say about you guys. The pop-up street stalls that you did and attending community forums was also a good idea. Now, we want to be constructive and helpful, and this motion seeks to do just that by further enhancing the engagement with the public on this key area of council activity, and which affects everybody in the borough. The idea of a two-way and public dialogue type of assembly has some precedence in Merton. We have at election times met and debated with the Merton Citizens Organisation, and they like citizens' assemblies. Also, the council itself has hosted large interactive workshops and other type of assemblies on the climate change debate. Now, Councillor Ann Bitters would remember that because we were at that one together in Lower Morden at the assembly halls in Lower Morden by the Morden Brook Pub, which is a very nice pub if anybody goes down to Lower Morden. That event was exceptionally well attended by a very large number of people and local groups such as local churches, environment groups, local businesses, schools, residents groups, and of course councillors like us and senior council officials. It proved a very popular way to engage the wider community, and so we would like the administration to do such events again to help ensure whatever type of waste service we have going forwards is well understood, appropriate, and has wide level of support. A waste service that is more responsive to the wide and varying needs of residents and which has public contribution, which would result in a better decision by this council, an outcome that we, and more crucially, the public would support. I think going down this route, as suggested, will be beneficial to you guys in Labour and help enhance the reputation of the council, especially following the long-run saga that you had with Veolia. Do not be afraid to do this. Do not stand fast by keeping the decision in-house, but rather do this open public engagement to show honour and strength for your convictions for a better waste service for all. Madam Mayor, I move this motion.
This has been seconded by Councillor Barlow. You have 4 minutes, please.
Madam Mayor, I'll reserve my right to speak until after the amendments if I can.
Okay. Okay, Liberal Democrat amendment. We have 2 amendments which will be taken in turn, beginning with the Liberal Democrat amendment. Councillor Faircroft, please. You move the amendment. You have 4 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Now, they do say that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, and this motion is right to say that residents need to have confidence in the new arrangements. That's exactly why back in May, we proposed a waste summit, an opportunity to bring transparency to the options and considerations so people could have a real input and help them understand the choices and compromises, a process that was sadly missing when the existing contracts were negotiated. Bizarrely, but perhaps unsurprisingly, this approach was rejected out of hand by the person who was cabinet member when the contracts were implemented as against the will of the people. In his same letter, actions not words, he reminded me that only 41% of those who voted in May had wanted Labour to make all the decisions. So it was good of him to highlight that most voters hadn't wanted Labour in charge. And the reason that we're seeking to amend the motion, well, we're trying to give it a fighting chance of getting it passed here tonight. To echo Councillor Holden's words, we're trying to be helpful. Now, I've reflected many times, Conservative motions are often either poorly drafted, Madam Mayor, or else deliberately written in a way that the other parties can't support. Conceptually, this motion is a shopping list of what Conservatives want to see from the new contracts, and it doesn't sit well with a call for the public to be able to have their own say on what they want the services to include. Now, of course, there's plenty of areas we want the new contracts to change, and Councillor Braithwaite will discuss some of those. But if we're genuine about engaging with the public, we shouldn't be seeking to restrict the administration's options right here, right now. And there's also some bits in the motion that are clearly just a little bit odd, like the demand for immediate clearing of fly tips. Now, it might just be imprecise language, and clearly Veolia's response to fly tipping is an area of weakness, but immediate fly tip collection would obviously only be possible if you're a mind reader. It's a bit like that film, you know, the one with Tom Cruise, where mutants can see into the future and predict crime before it happens. Was it Minority Report? Also somehow a fitting way to describe proposals from Merton's local Conservatives. So the first part of our amendment instead sets out some guiding principles for developing new arrangements. They must be about ensuring good services that reflect local priorities and noting the need to consider the impact on the environment and climate change and the desire to ensure fair pay for workers. And surely, Madam Mayor, we can all agree with that. The second bit of our amendment tidies up the idea of the Merton Assembly. I mean, who here doesn't love a public meeting? But I strongly doubt it would be possible to find a contractor, or indeed multiple contractors if the services are split, who'd be willing to spend significant time and resources negotiating a finished contract that was subject to a one-off public meeting and referendum. And one only has to look around the attendees of community forums to see who's missing, and therefore the weakness of that one-off public meeting. But it is right to say the public should be engaged in the decisions and indeed have their say on them and vote on them. And in public life, we already have a concept of how that's done. Citizens' assemblies, also known as citizen juries. And Merton has a bit of experience of that kind of approach with its climate emergency response. So our amendment swaps the free-for-all Merton Assembly for a set of properly established and representative citizens' assemblies in a way that allows the administration to put these in place and properly respond to them. Madam Mayor, I hope our colleagues will back this amendment tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. The amendment is being seconded by Councillor Braithwaite, and this is his maiden speech. It's 4 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And as it's the first time that I'm speaking at full council, I'd like to thank the residents of Abbey Ward for electing me, and I'll do everything I can to support them in these very difficult times. Abbey Ward is a very diverse community, including the High Path Estate apartments, family houses in Old Merton Park and the Battles, private apartment blocks near the Broadway. As a result, I've already been presented with a very diverse and at times challenging casework that I've done my best to answer. Now, turning to the matter in hand, I also agree with the substance of the motion that we need residents to have confidence in any future arrangements. Too many people have felt let down by the current service. In my short time as councillor, I've had many complaints about unswept streets, missed collections from apartment blocks, overflowing street bins, and the mess on our main roads caused by plastic bags put out the night before and ripped open by foxes. And of course, fly tipping. A lot of these problems can be fixed. And as Councillor Fairclough has said, if we work together on these, I'm sure we can find workable solutions for the benefit of residents. I think the Cabinet member for Civic Pride earlier talked about partnership working being very important. It's a pity that that doesn't always apply to members on this side of the chamber. It would also be useful to learn from best practice solutions in use elsewhere. There are some items on the shopping list that we agree with. We'd previously proposed that better training and support for officers should be provided to help them hold Veolia to account, and proposed in scrutiny that recycling of larger items be brought physically closer to residents. There are also other ideas, such as underground bins, already planned for some of the new Clarion properties that could be extended to main roads, and proposals such as ensuring streets are swept after the bins have been collected and not before. We should, however, leave this until the public have had their say in the current consultation, so it is right that our amendment does not include these. It's also correct that we should consider fair pay for workers and also consider an environmental response to the climate emergency and any new arrangements. Therefore, Madam Mayor, I'm happy to second this amendment and hope that colleagues on all sides of the chamber can support it.
Thank you. Councillor Barlow, would you like to come in? Thank you. If there are no further speakers, Councillor Holden, do you wish to use your right of reply now or after the second amendment? Thank you. I will now call on for a vote on the amendment. Members, raise your hands. For. Against? Not voting? Thank you. For 26, against 29, not voting 1, the amendment fails. The amendment is lost. We now move to the second amendment. The amendment is carried and the motion is amended. Thus, we now move to the second amendment. Councillor Irons, please move your amendments. You have 4 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, tonight is my 9th wedding anniversary, and the very fact that I'm here tonight and not at home, thank you. The fact that I'm here tonight and not at home may have added to the many reasons my husband probably regrets the decision he took to marrying me. However, for me, the fact that I married a man with the patience of a saint has just reinforced my decision to say yes when asked. Because, Madam Mayor, in life as in politics, there are often decisions we must take that will have a long-term impact on other people's lives. Whether it's ring-fencing £2 million to help Merton's residents through the cost of living crisis, or funding meals in the school holidays so that our children do not go hungry, or as in the case of this government deciding to plunge the nation into an economic nightmare, the decisions we make in places like this have real consequences to the lives outside these walls. So, Madam Mayor, it is right to ask ourselves if we are using the right tools to make the right decisions in the interests of our community. I do not dispute the value of citizens' assemblies. They give people the opportunity to look into detail at a complex, difficult or moral issue and make recommendations for change. For example, it is recognised the Irish government's decision to convene a citizens' assembly to look at repealing abortion laws was instrumental in seeing their country vote in favour of a women's right to choose. However, citizens' assemblies, to be meaningful, need to have 3 things: time, money and a complex issue. According to Involve, the UK's leading public participation charity, an assembly requires a minimum of 24 weeks and £66,000 to run. Because key to the success of any assembly is compensating members for their participation and having a range of experts come along to give evidence. Whilst the decision we are about to take for the future RA services is a big one, and believe me, no one else in this room knows how big that decision is, it is not a complex one. Bins must be collected, streets must be swept. This is not a moral conundrum, this is a legal requirement. But Madam Mayor, we want to rebuild a waste service based on the needs of our community that meets the environmental challenges we face and that keeps Merton clean. So we launched our public consultation the same week we've made the decision to end our contract with Veolia. The consultation has included an online survey, high street pop-up sessions, online Q&As, telephone interviews and focus groups. We've had over 1,700 responses so far, and I encourage everyone to get involved before it closes on the 22nd of November. The results will feed into the decision about what comes next for the future of our waste services. And I have committed to holding a special pre-decision scrutiny meeting where this decision is the only item on the agenda. This cross-party panel will give everybody the opportunity to see the results of our consultation, to interrogate our decision on whatever delivery model we choose that we believe will deliver the best service for our community. And it will allow members the opportunity to scrutinise whatever improvements we want to make to the specification and how we intend to protect our workforce. So, Madam Mayor, citizens' assemblies are right up my street, but they are not the right tool for this decision. I urge colleagues to vote for our amendment and to work with us for a cleaner Merton. Thank you.
Thank you. The amendment is being seconded by Councillor Johnston, and this is his maiden speech.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to second this amendment, but forgive me if I digress slightly from speaking on it exclusively, because this is my maiden speech, and I hear there are certain traditions to it. So I'm proud to represent Figs Mars, somewhere I have spent practically all my life. I'm a Mitcham man that learned how to read and write in St. Peter and Paul's, that learned valuable life skills as a proud member of the 11th Mitcham Scouts, and that learned what I know about politics from regularly joining Mitcham Morden's inimitable MP, Siobhan MacDonagh, speaking with residents on the doorstep. And I want to pause a bit here because, as is the case for so many of us, at least on this side of the chamber, Siobhan has played an incredibly important role in my political journey, and I'm proud to call her a mentor and a friend. But I also want to pay tribute to Councillor Geraldine Stanford, my predecessor, whose tireless work in Figs Marsh meant her name was regularly brought up by residents alongside Siobhan's when people would speak about who has their back. Together, they taught me that the bread and butter of politics is speaking with residents and fighting on their behalf, that your political priorities are what you hear on the doorstep again and again and again. And that's fighting for more decent homes, so children don't have to spend their childhood in severely overcrowded and temporary accommodation. That's calling out housing associations that condemn residents to live in squalor by dragging their feet when it comes to repairs. And that's making sure that we have an economy that works for all, so that children and adults don't have to choose between heating and eating. This is what drives my politics and what I'll be fighting for alongside the residents of Figs Marsh. Top of my agenda right now is calling out the typical shoddy repair service from Clarion that my residents have to endure. In my ward, I have the Eastfield Estate, Armfield Crescent, the Laburnum Estate, and Sadler Close, where I grew up. All of them managed by Clarion, and all of them teeming with residents whose opinions about Clarion I can't repeat in this chamber. What is needed is a step change in how Clarion is run, how it communicates and treats residents' associations, and ultimately on the results it delivers for long-suffering residents. So if any Figs residents happen to be watching this and you've been let down by Clarion, get in touch. Let me hear your story and I will fight for you. And when good work is done, I'll welcome it and recognize it. But I will judge Clarion on results and not on warm words, which in my experience have been cheap and plentiful. I also want to talk about more positive, better things in Figs Marsh. For instance, the hidden sporting jewel, which I am making it my mission to proudly champion and promote. And Councillor Caroline Cooper-Marbert might have slightly stolen my thunder here, but did you know that Merton is home to the second largest and one of the best BMX tracks in all of London? And its home is in Figs Marsh, on Acacia Road, next to the Eastfield Estate, where Clarion, and credit is due, fund kids from the estate to engage in professionally supervised lessons. But not only that, children with SEND needs, children from the age of 4 to adults above the age of 60 regularly use the track. So no excuses for not seeing anyone over there. I am ambitious for Figs and for Merton. A national BMX championship in Figs is not off the table. But my ambition also extends to having a waste service that meets the standards we want, which is why I have no hesitation in seconding this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Barlow, need to.
Madam Mayor. I'm not concerned that Veolia won't be able to meet their targets. Those aren't my words. Those are the words of one Stephen Allen Brittis, then leader of the council. Back in 2018, when a number of us were first elected to this council and our inboxes were full of little else but residents telling us exactly why Veolia were not and would never meet their targets. But of course, we have a new leader of the council and we must give him the benefit of the doubt. It's only fair we judge him by his own words and yes, his actions. Well, for a start, he was the architect of the current policy. As he put it in 2016, residents don't have anything to fear. The streets will be cleaner, more people will recycle, and we'll also save millions of pounds. We are a listening council. I am willing to listen to residents' concerns. Well, Madam Mayor, they may have listened to those concerns, but it's taken them 6 years, 2 elections, 3 leaders, thousands of missed collections, hundreds of complaints, and an immeasurable amount of litter on mucky Merton streets to hear them. So they'll forgive residents for needing some convincing that this council alone is capable of getting it right this time. Their defence is that there's a consultation, there was a consultation last time, a deeply flawed consultation intended only to give the council the answer it wanted. It sold residents short and got us into the mess we're in now, which is why we need a new approach. As Councillor Holden has helpfully already explained, by assembling Merton's residents, not only to ask them what they think, but to involve them in the decisions that are taken, will get not only a better system, but one in which they can genuinely know they've had their say. We did welcome the Liberal Democrat amendments and their support for the principle of the Merton Assembly on waste, and we certainly heard a lot of waste in Councillor Fairclough's remarks. The Labour amendment seems to suggest that the reason we need a new waste and street cleaning service is because the current one has worked so well. Indeed, cabinet papers setting out the decision say the primary reasons a new arrangement is needed is because of changes in global recycling markets and the evolving needs of residents. The needs of residents have not changed. Clean streets, on-time collections, a system that is easy to use and works. The council administration cannot solve this problem because they haven't even accepted what that problem has been. The residents know, which is why we must give them a say and a vote, and that's why I second this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. I have the following listing, pardon? Sorry. I have the following listed to speak. Councillor Fairclough, you have 3 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I won't need 3 minutes. I've already welcomed at the scrutiny panel Councillor Irons' commitment to an additional scrutiny panel on this. It is welcome, but this is the status quo. I would disagree that this is a straightforward problem. Certainly the administration hasn't made it look straightforward. And Councillor Johnson, fantastic maiden speech, and I agree with a lot of what he says about registered providers. Long may all strength to your arm is all I'll say. And Councillor Barlow, he managed to praise us and criticise me in the same go. So thank you for that, Councillor Barlow. I almost missed it, but the swearing probably would have worked more effectively. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. As there are no further speakers on this motion, Councillor Holden, would you like to use your right of reply? You have 2 minutes, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll try to be brief. As mentioned by Councillor Barlow, we did welcome the Liberal insertion into the debate, and it's a topic that we both have spoken on at scrutiny meetings and in this chamber. It's a shame, though, that Labour have taken their usual stance on such motions and totally miss the intention and completely change it. Means something completely different. It's a shame that always gets through officials. In my opinion, that needs to be looked at. I'm not sure what Labour are so scared of. I mean, our motion was exceptionally helpful, as was the Liberals' amendment. So I don't know why you're so scared of asking the public and why you want to ignore key public engagement opportunities. So therefore, on this basis, we cannot vote for your amendment.
I will now call for a vote on the second amendment. For, against, not voting. For 29, against 26, not voting 1. The amendment is carried. The amendment, I now call for a vote on the substantive motion as amended. Members, please indicate for. All those in favor? All those against? All those not voting? Thank you. For 29, against 9, 18 not voting. It's carried. Yeah. Council Tax Support Scheme, item 14. Councillor Christie, will you move this report, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm extremely proud to be able to stand here today and introduce our renewed council tax support scheme. This support scheme, one of the most generous in the country, will help protect our lowest paid residents from the cost of living crisis by providing up to 100% discount on their council tax bills. This will cost the council somewhere in the region of £13.5 million next year, but I'm sure we'll all agree that this will be money well spent if it helps low-income households get through these difficult months. Madam Mayor, Mahatma Gandhi once said that the true measure of any society can be found in how it treats its most vulnerable. I got involved in politics shortly after the 2010 election when the Con-Dem coalition came to power and brought about the age of austerity. I joined the Labour Party then because I knew that what the Tories and the Lib Dems were doing to the most vulnerable in our society was wrong. Fast forward 12 years, Madam Mayor, and despite more than a decade of cuts to council finances and Tory prime ministers and chancellors coming and going and coming and going, I'm so proud that the Labour administration here in Merton is continuing the generous level of council tax support to our most financially vulnerable residents. And to be clear, our scheme is more generous than the comparative schemes in neighbouring councils, such as, for example, Kingston, Richmond and Sutton. That is the difference that having a Labour council makes. And that is what Merton residents can expect from this administration, help and support to those who need it most. So I hope that all councillors in this chamber will support this scheme tonight so that we can provide some much needed reassurance to low paid households in the borough and can continue putting this Labour administration's values into practice. Thank you.
This has been seconded by Councillor Garrod.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's not one of these hold-ups. Merton Labour are committed to helping the lowest paid residents through this conservative cost of living emergency, putting £13.5 million into the pockets of those most in need. In addition to the additional support that this Labour Council has chosen to provide to our residents since we were elected. I wasn't intending to speak on this as the report and its content speaks for itself. But after reading of the opportunistic amendment from the party opposite, I thought it was right to do so. Because, Madam Mayor, the party opposite are treating the electorate for fools. And I want to provide a bit of an education on why I believe that. And I know that they're, of the current crop that are currently sitting here, have been on a political journey, different parties. I think it's party number 4 now. Councillor Gould, is it 3, 4? But let me remind those that perhaps weren't in the Lib Dems during the coalition. They in government supported the abolition of the council tax benefit scheme, passing the buck to local authorities to decide whether or not to continue the scheme. And not only did they do that, but they coupled it at the same time with a cold bucket of austerity. I'm proud Merton Labour has prioritised the lowest paid in our borough and has prioritised the funding so that we can continue this important scheme. It's not been easy to find the funding year on year when we're making up for 12 years of Lib Dem and Conservative austerity. And it's shameful and dishonest for them now to call for a change to the scheme when they were hell-bent set on destroying it only a few years ago. Back then, they almost bankrupted local authorities from cuts they inflicted. Now they're trying to bankrupt this council with uncosted and exuberant spending pledges. We will not play politics with the residents' money and the financial stability of this authority. Since May, they've called on the council to pay for the damage caused by the Conservative government for paying for businesses' energy bills, the rising energy bills at schools when it should be paid for by the government. Stop letting your coalition bedfellows off the hook. They then supported freezing council tax
How would they have paid for that on top of the other things they were asking for? And now they want the council to spend millions upon millions more. I thought, it's nice that the part-time councillor is back in the chamber. I thought the days of the party opposite playing court jester were behind them, but it's clear that economic policies are a joke and they aren't a serious party. Madam Mayor, we are on the side and will stand firm in support of our residents and will continue to provide sound financial management of our residents' money. I second the report.
Thank you. We go into Lib Democrats amendment. We have an amendment to the report. Councillor Oliver, please move your amendment, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, councillors, officers. It's my pleasure today to propose the Liberal Democrat motion on council tax support. What is it we're asking you to think about? We'd like the Cabinet to consider whether, in the light of the cost of living emergency, there's any scope to widen the existing scheme to bring in some of those who do not qualify under the existing criteria. We ask that this be done urgently, by which we mean as part of the current budget setting process, because these changes would apply from the start of the next financial year. Now, this council is rightly proud of itself for having maintained a generous council tax support scheme. What it's done is every year annually uprated the benefits in the structure that existed in 2020, despite reductions in support of central government. But changes to this, no changes to the structure of this scheme have been made since then. So when, in the words of our motion, we ask you to consider a modernized scheme, we're talking about reviewing a scheme that has not been changed for a decade. Now, in order to do that, you'd need some data, and it would have been very helpful if the paper had included some. For example, we now know from the two speakers that the value of council tax discount is about £13 million, but it didn't say that in the paper. What is the trend? How many people are claiming? How many claims are successful? How many are unsuccessful? How many drop out in the process? How many eligible people do we think live in our area and don't claim? Is there something we could do to encourage them? For example, at the moment, the website is very, very confusing. So we could follow the recommendations of the GLA and their consultation response that it be equipped with a calculating device so people can see what they might get. How much might it cost to broaden the scope of the scheme so that those who are nearly eligible could get something? For example, you could vary the taper rate, which at the moment is 20%. Perhaps you could lower that. But we don't know the answers to that because we haven't been given any data, but we ask you to think about it. The choice the paper offers you is either to roll over the existing plan or to read next year's plan at this year's level. In other words, you're invited to choose between the status quo and something which is clearly inferior. There is no thought that the scheme could be tweaked or improved in any way. Innovation and creativity are simply not on the table. Council tax support is perhaps the most significant lever we have to ease the financial problems of our people. Surely we would expect our leaders to consider very carefully whether improvements are possible in these very challenging times. But the paper does not offer you that. If you wish to see any improvements or consideration of possible improvements to the scheme, you would have to support this amendment. Thank you.
Councillor Page, please second the amendment. You have 4 minutes, please.
Madam Mayor, I second this amendment. Madam Mayor, the people and families we want to target in our amendment are residents who have found that bills have gone up faster than wages and now face a terrible financial position. Normally, income, household size, makeup, and the other ingredients that go into benefits calculations are sufficient to identify who needs the most support. But with the huge hit and shock to the costs residents and families face, there'll be households that the traditional methods do not identify and support. Perhaps families that have specific circumstances that make it hard to reduce energy use. There has been a shocking story from Scotland about a household unable to afford to keep their medical equipment going at home until they got support from a fundraising campaign from a celebrity donation, and smaller scale but similar devastating things may be happening in Merton. Perhaps rent has got up much more than expected, tipping households with good incomes into debts. Some people may have been prudent and careful with their household finances, and they are shocked to find themselves in a position of needing assistance. Over the longer term, these residents may be forced into making painful lifestyle changes, or more hopefully see wages and incomes rise to restore their standard of living, and also restore their ability to pay full council tax. But in the short term, the council should consider broadening the CTS. The council should try and find ways to give support to residents who fall outside of the boundaries of the CTS scheme, but are trapped by circumstances well outside of their control and cannot afford in 2023 to meet their full tax demands. And Madam Mayor, the other thing I wanted to note is I sit on the Standards and General Purposes Committee, and in our last meeting, we re-agreed, part of our code of conduct for councillors, where it says, I treat other councillors and members of the public with respect. And respect means politeness and courtesy in behaviour, speech, and in the written word. And I think we should embrace that. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Please support our amendment.
Well done, well done.
Councillor McLean, you have 3 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Conservative group have been consistent in our call over the years for a bespoke Merton council tax support scheme, and that, of course, remains our position. But in the absence of a bespoke scheme today, the Conservative group will be supporting the scheme as it is being proposed. Thank you.
Councillor Christie, do you wish to use your right of reply? You have 2 minutes, please.
Madam Mayor, just briefly, the council tax support scheme that we're putting forward today remains one of the most generous in the country. It's significantly more generous than schemes that are run by any other neighbouring council. So, whilst I'm sympathetic to the idea that there are more people we'd love to be supporting, we are already supporting more people than other nearby councils. So I think it's a little bit unjust to suggest that we're not doing enough to help people during the cost of living crisis, especially, Madam Mayor, when earlier in the administration we set up a specific emergency £2 million cost of living fund that we have used to directly support those residents most in need throughout these difficult months. And I just say again, that's on top of the £13.5 million we're committing to this scheme already to support our lowest paid residents. The amendment they've proposed suggests expanding the scheme, but to an unspecified number of people and at an unspecified cost. Expanding the scheme would inevitably increase the cost and reduce the council tax base, which is not a sustainable position, given that we're already providing millions of pounds of support in other ways. So, Madam Mayor, after 12 years of Liberal Democrat and Conservative-led austerity, we're not in a position to be playing fast and loose with taxpayers' money. We, as an authority, are experiencing all the same pressures that residents in the borough are, but we continue to provide targeted support to those who need it most. So, thank you.
The amendment fails. The amendment is lost. I now call for a vote on the original report. Is that agreed? Yes. Agreed. Thank you. Item 15, South London Waste Plan. Councillor Judge, will you move this report? You have 4 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do move this report that the council adopts the South London Waste Plan as part of Merton's statutory local plan, and subsequent updating of Merton's statutory policies map subject to any amendments necessary to give effect to any recommendations contained in the final report from the planning inspectors. This matter has been consulted upon in all 4 boroughs and it has been agreed by the inspectors following modifications. The London plan sets the borough's target of managing all our waste in London and 0 biodegradable and recyclable waste going to landfill by 2026. It also sets targets for municipal, commercial, industrial, construction, demolition, and excavation waste. It's a vital part of our sustainability policies. The waste plan safeguards sufficient sites to treat this waste. Its policies will be used to assess the merits of any planning application submitted by the South London Waste Partnerships contractor or any other commercial waste operator. This waste plan maintains a restrictive approach to new waste sites, which means new sites will not be permitted except in exceptional circumstances where it is demonstrated that the new site can't be delivered elsewhere in London. And it removes the waste safeguarding designation from the Benedict Wharf site, allowing it to be used for housing. It removes the designation areas with sites suitable for waste facilities from Willow Lane, Garth Road, and the Durnsford Road industrial estates. It designates no new sites for waste in Merton. It strengthens our air quality policy, and it supports delivery of net zero carbon development. Madam Mayor, I do recommend this report to this chamber.
This report has been seconded by Councillor Gerards.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to formally second the report and fully endorse Councillor Judge.
Thank you. Councillor Rice, you have 3 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I'd like to make some points about the implementation of this plan, and I'll briefly explain why. The 2022 plan substantially builds on the 2010 plan, which might have been a good thing to do. The 2012 plan got some things right, but it got some things wrong, inevitably. We didn't know, for example, in 2012, the health dangers of particulate matter of 2.5 microns, which, for the purposes of this talk, I'll call small dust particles. We didn't know the danger in the air. In 2022, we know better. We now know that these small dust particles lead to cancer in lung cells and in other parts of the body by stimulating the growth of cancer mutating cells. In 2012, no assessment, I can't believe this, but no assessment of air quality and traffic congestion was made. Resident surveys in the areas around where I am, carried out over several months around Wandle, Hillside, Wimbledon Park, have recorded an average of 600 HGV vehicles per day travelling to the Weir Road site alone, with very heavy congestion on Plough Lane and Durnsford, Warple, Alexandra, Gap and Hayden's Road. Furthermore, back in 2012, only 4 air quality focus areas were chosen for Merton, many fewer than many other boroughs, incidentally. Wimbledon Broadway, Rains Park, Mitcham and Morden. They were chosen based on nitrous oxide levels. No consideration given to particulates. So we should consider other sites, including those with heavy HGV traffic leading to our waste sites. So we make 4 requests. Number 1, we would like air quality focus areas to be closer to residential areas near the waste sites. Number 2, we'd like to have better, fully fundable air monitoring installed, which includes measuring those small, pesky little dust particles that we know are dangerous. We'd like to see this monitoring to be done on the waste sites, but also on nearby residential roads. And we would like the pollution figures to be published monthly on the council website. Given the increasing importance of air quality and our desire to build on civic pride, We hope these proposals will be received favourably when implementing the waste plan. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Judge, would you like to use your right of reply, please? You have 2 minutes.
Yeah, I suggest you take your points to scrutiny so they can be examined thoroughly and tested against the light of research and reality.
Is the report agreed? As I hear no dissent, that is agreed. Item 16, Treasurer's Management Performance Report. Councillor Christie, will you move this report, please? 4 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be very brief. I'm happy to move this report, which shows that the council's investment and treasury management activity follows all relevant SIPFA guidance. I'm also pleased to report that despite the chaos and fluctuation in financial markets since the disastrous mini budget in September, the council's investment portfolio is anticipating an increased return of an additional £0.4 million this year due to the rise in interest rates. However, I don't need to tell you, Madam Mayor, that the chaos of the mini budget and the mismanagement of the economy by the Conservative government will no doubt push many more people into financial hardship, leading to an increased call on council services. And so, of course, the rampant inflation is adding significant pressure on our budget. So whilst our investments have made modest gains, it's inevitable that the financial mess the government has caused will lead to a net cost to the council. But I'm happy to move the report, Madam Mayor.
This report has been seconded by Councillor Gerard. 4 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just formally second it.
Councillor Oliver, you have 3 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I won't be taking 3 minutes. This is a rather troubling paper. No explanation is given as to why we should deviate from the Treasury Management Plan that was agreed as recently as March 2022. We knew then that interest rates would be on an upward path. The paper says the existing limits on amount, duration, and counterparties that the council can deposit cash with need to be altered. This means that the interim finance and digital director would be able to invest money with organizations that are currently prohibited. We don't consider that this paper adequately explains the need for this, and therefore we cannot support it.
Thank you. Councillor McLean, you have 3 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. £2.1 million spent on a development company that never laid a brick, let alone built a house. We now know that's going to be 2.4 million. £48.8 million deficit created in the DSG budget, having to go cap in hand to the Conservative government for a bailout. £29 million. £72 million put at risk because they failed to negotiate a robust housing regeneration contract with Clarion Housing at £122 million. Misspent, mismanaged, or put at risk. Much more than an entire year's council tax take. That, Madam Mayor, is Merton Labour's financial record. Madam Mayor, my understanding is this recommendation B is in response to recent increases in interest rates and therefore the return to our investments, as Councillor Christie has just pointed out. But I would also like to point out to Councillor Christie that the country has been through a pandemic and now we have to pay for it. The most costly measure being the furlough scheme, a scheme supported by, of course, the Labour Party. If the Labour leader, Captain Hindsight, had his way, we would still probably be in a lockdown and therefore in a much more severe fiscal position. With regard to the mini budget, the most costly measure was a 2-year energy price guarantee, again supported by the Labour Party. So if Councillor Christie wants to be taken seriously, stop playing the games. And if you would also like perhaps some fiscal, monetary, maybe even supply side economic tutoring, happy to oblige. We also have similar concerns with the Liberal Democrats about why this measure, in particular recommendation B, has been brought forward. I have had discussions with the Chief Executive and the Monitoring Officer on this and have been comforted that for the reasons, and therefore we will support the report. Thank you.
Mr. Christie, would you like to use your right to reply? You have 2 minutes.
Please, Madam Mayor. I would say, first of all, that the recommendation B that councillors Oliver and McLean have referenced is not simply about allowing the director to make short-term changes to the strategy as a result of the changing interest rates, but also of the level of chaos that government bond markets were thrown into after the September mini budget. So I think it's a quite prudent thing to do to allow the director to make necessary short-term changes to protect and maximise our investments. And I'd also just gently say to Councillor McLean, I won't be taking lessons in financial competence from someone who just a few weeks ago backed Liz Truss for leader of the Conservative Party. Thank you.
Is that agreed? Okay. Fine. All those in favor, put your answer. All those against? Not voting? All right, thanks. For 48, against 17, not voting 1, report is carried. Okay, item 17, appointment of an independent person. Councillor Brunt, will you move this report, please? You have 4 minutes.
4 minutes is very generous. I'd formally like to move this report and the recommendation that Katie Willison is appointed for a further 4 years as the independent person on the Standards and General Purposes Committee. And I understand that Vice Chair is going to second that.
Mr. Brunt, would you like to use your rights of reply? Sorry. Okay. The report. Hang on a minute, relax. Is that report agreed? Right. That is agreed. Item 18, committee members and related matters. Councillor Garrod, will you please move this report? You have 4 minutes.
I'd like to formally move this report, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. This has been formally seconded by Councillor Stringer. 4 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I'd like to formally second this.
Is the report agreed? Agreed, yes. Okay, thank you. Item 19, petition. Councillor, no, not yet. One moment. Councillor Garrod, will you move the report?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I would like to formally move the report.
Councillor Stringer, would you like to second the report?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I second this report.
When I call your name, please announce the title of your petition and bring forward any petition that you wish to submit. Councillor Faircroft.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a petition from the pupils of St Mary's School in Wimbledon against the use of pesticides.
Please bring forward. Thank you. Thank you. Councillor McLean, your turn.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have a petition from the Westbourne Conservatives for a K5 bus shelter petition in Moxburgh Park Village.
Please read forward. Thank you. I have the following listed to speak on the report. Councillor Gallia? Oh, sorry, I do apologize. Please come forward. That's all right. Thank you. Thank you. All right, so will you go down here? Councillor Gallia, you have 3 minutes, please.
Mayor, I won't take that long. I'm obviously disappointed to see that the petition calling for changes to the control parking in CPZ H1 nearby WFC Wimbledon will not be taken forward, and that the council is not listening to the residents who live in Cohat, Kingsley and Havelock. For everyone's benefit, the existing parking restrictions are 8:30 to 8 every day. The petition proposed for it to be changed to 8:30 to 6:30 Monday to Friday and 8:30 to 9:30 on match and events days. I'm puzzled by the assertion that it would be extremely resource intensive to implement these changes. And I would be grateful if I could be told how and why, especially as our neighbors in Wandsworth are able to do so. But I'd also like to make it clear that the recommended parking restrictions was not an option in the original statutory consultation, and that this petition that we submitted has had roughly 90 signatures, yet the statutory consultation had 75 responses, of which only 60%, which is roughly 45 responses, were in favor of the existing parking restrictions. So in conclusion, I feel residents should be allowed to change their minds, especially when they are unhappy with their existing lived experience. I thought the council prides themselves to listening to Merton residents. Thank you.
As I have no further speakers, Councillor Garrod, do you wish to use your right to reply?
No, Madam Mayor, thank you.
Okay. Is the report agreed? Thank you. Item 20, business for the next order meeting of the council. Can I ask Councillor McLean to put forward the strategic team for the next meeting of the council, February 1st, 2023?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Ensure a clean and environmentally sustainable borough with inclusive open spaces where people can come together and enjoy a variety of natural life. Thank you.
With no further business, I declare the meeting closed. Thank you very much. Have a good night.